to the history of rhetoric,
post-philosophical rhetoric,
in connection with what other things it does or does not transmit intensity.
Vitanza, and particularly through his essay in Contending with Words.
He sets up the categories first, second, and third sophistic, in which other multiplicities, its own intensities, are inserted and metamorphosed, and with what bodies without organs it makes its own intensities converge.
There is a need for a competing humming on.
A book is not an isolated or unified object. Categories such as first, second, and third sophistic have no fixed content, but an assemblage or body without organs,
humming on,
which allows theories and theorists to be casuistically stretched in connection with other assemblages, from one category or time period to another. Likewise, a name and a date are not simply facts to be listed.
Ulmer devotes much of his discussion of entertainment to the practice of impersonation,
humming on,
Elvis impersonation in particular,
but terms that signify a collection of statements, practices, and their affects and effects,
just like the lip curl is necessary for impersonating Elvis,
in the larger constellations to which they are connected.
There is a need for a competing and complementary view of rhetoric as being non-disciplinary.
Perhaps, as Vitanza suggests, one way to respond to the challenges of the excellent university, as well as our intradisciplinary struggles, is to forego these dialectics and the problems they announce, and not forget these, quote, third interval waves.
Humming on. What is it that you want?
Third interval waves.
What is it that you want, that you want?
Third interval waves.
A wandering and wandering from the notes.
Third interval waves.
Rather than pure chance or chaos, Kairos is complex and requires the rhetor's ability to participate in the co-adaptive development of a situation,
third interval waves,
by infusing discourse into it.
Third interval waves. The compositional process I am describing,
a wandering,
is the same whether one is producing an experimental video or an office memo.
And wandering.
This kind of experimental interview,
humming on.
It is not a deterministic process and is completely abstracted from the content of the composition.
I began writing this book so many times. I would sit and type what I thought I was going to type, and yet out came something else.
Life is not linear or static, but a continuous process that folds over on itself and produces increased complexity and individuation.
More often than not, something else.
That is, just as a singularity that draws materiality into states of lowest energy might unfold both soap bubbles and salt crystals, these compositional processes might unfold in a non-deterministic way.
Something else.
Into a wide range of media.
Something else.
Depending upon the other materials and multiplicities with which they intersect in the compositional process.
Humming on.
By an unseen ghost.
That said, understanding the operation of these multiplicities opens the opportunity to engage strategically with their affects.
Rather than pure chance or chaos, Kairos is complex and requires the rhetor's ability to participate in the co-adaptive development of a situation.
Humming on.
In addition, this compositional process of ripping, mixing, and burning allows us to rethink how we teach composition.
Humming on.
Ripping is a process of copying, quoting, or citing. It is the slicing of material from one context and its insertion into another. As I will discuss, this process creates conditions for the spread of contagions.
Humming on.
That is, by ripping two or more pieces of media open and inserting them into one another.
For example, one concept that could be built out of my name is hawk, eagle or American ideology. Hawk, to sell one's wares, an economic practice. Ha, laughter, Diane Davis's breaking up a totality, a rhetoric of laughter. Whack, or riding across the curriculum, an aspect of my teaching.
One creates the possibility for information to flow from one into the other, causing mutation.
Humming on.
This is akin to the process by which multiplicities mutate. In this way, ripping leads into mixing, whereby the contagion spreads from the immediate site of the rip through the intersecting media.
Or a non-Platonic and non-Aristotelian approach to composition theory.
This proliferation typifies the mixing process as the multiplicities mutate and unfold in a fractal-like pattern.
From Aristotle onward,
Eventually, this proliferation slows down and the multiplicity returns to a relatively stable state.
Humming on.
The mixing is done.
Humming on.
At this stage, the composition is burned. The burning process is also one of involution, that is, one both of shrinking but also involvement. Literally, the file size shrinks through a process of data compression. Also, the burned files can be made accessible on the informational network, where the process may be reiterated. It is certainly possible to view the burned file as a finished product that might be copyrighted. However, technically, the process can be stopped at any moment and the existing text copyrighted. Notes I read on a cocktail napkin are copyrighted. In compositional terms, the burned file is simply a site for ripping in an ongoing iterative process.
Humming on.
By an unseen ghost.
Rhetorics still have their desires.